This is NFT Culture. I'm John, joined by my partners, Mike and Mal. What's going on, fellas?
Hey man, what's going on? Were we racing to see who could do the intro?
Yeah, I saw Mal's lips going. I'm like, nah, not this time.
I was going to put you up by yourself again, but I decided to not do that to you.
I could have opined for about 10 minutes on Luna.
I mean, we're here. We're still alive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I actually managed to get a short open on Luna before it exploded, so that was pretty exciting.
Dude, did you see in our Discord, shout out to Lotus. So Lotus yesterday literally dropped in the alpha chat the lowest amount that you could to buy Luna. He put $100 into it and just let it sit, and it turned into 13 grand. And he put it in our chat yesterday at 7 p.m.
Oh wow, that's crazy!
Yeah.
I haven't watched it since I closed my short. There's actually, I guess it'll probably bounce around for a little bit.
Yeah, that dead cat is going to bounce for a while.
Well, the craziest thing is like, all the people that were shorting it, you close out, and so there's like a momentary spike, and then people trying to catch along while that's spiking. And then I saw one of the funniest things on Twitter was like people doing technical analysis on UST, like the actual movement of the stable coin. I mean, like only in this market you see people drawing patterns for a stable coin where they think it's going. Oh man, only crypto. It's crazy.
What a week.
Yeah, it was. What a week. Did y'all have any fallout from Luna? Did y'all participate or no?
No way.
No.
Now, I picked up some poly.
Yeah.
Because I was like, 50 cents for a Matic is really cheap, I feel, considering it's, I think, going to continue to be the primary L2 for at least the medium term.
Yeah, I just watched right before we started streaming, Bankless had Vitalik and a couple other guys on Dank sharding. And at the very end, Vitalik made a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke about, not staying optimistic, but staying zero knowledge. So like his bet is clearly in any of these layer twos that are doing zero knowledge. So things like Starkware, Starknet, or ZK Sync, or Polygon. They have that on the roadmap. They picked up a company. I can't remember the company now. No, it wasn't Metis. They're doing Optimism, but yeah. So he's putting his chips to the table for zero knowledge stuff.
What is zero knowledge? I don't even know what that is.
It's basically privacy, and it's a core layer 2 scaling technique. So there's two like basically main layer 2 technologies. You've got optimistic rollups, and then you have zero knowledge, and those are the two that, like Arbitrum and Optimism. Those are using optimistic rollups, and then, like I said, Starknet, Starkware, and ZK Sync are using zero knowledge rollups. So just different ways to compress data. So
I think those are using those Verkle trees, which are like Merkle trees. So they're named after him. So that's probably why he likes them.
Well, no, there's a lot that goes into it. There's all sorts of mechanism design that determines which one's better, like how fast you come to finality, and some other things that I think the stream would probably get pretty dull if I started going into them. But yeah.
Well, we'll have a dull stream, maybe a Tech Tuesday, where you can get into the technicals of that, because it is really interesting to see how the space is evolving, and how rugs can be. What's really interesting for me about this space is just like what's going on with Azuki, and it's heartbreaking.
I've never been the biggest Azuki fan from the get-go.
Bro,
but
that's because you missed the boat.
well, you could say that, but I wasn't super keen on a lot of the promises, and it just felt it didn't feel organic to me. It felt very mecca to me. And but it caught hold. I think it had the right influencers behind it, so it caught hold. So I don't know. I've never been a big fan, so I wasn't super surprised. It's like with Luna and Do Kwon, it's the same thing. I wasn't super surprised that he was part of another failed stablecoin before this one launched. It's just people have a track record of doing the same thing over and over, especially when it results in a lot of money. So
Have you seen those jokes now about like what if Vitalik came out and said he used Ethereum to learn and he's gonna go launch something else? There's two sides to that, right? It's like so I disagree with everything Zagabond did, right? In terms of like pretending to be a woman and like all the stuff that went into all the projects. I think
you can't just disagree with that. It's like this is
it's inexcusable.
If you're still holding Azuki, shame on you.
No, but I mean, here's the thing: like Azuki became bigger than like the bad person at the helm, right? It's like,
okay,
and that's the other thing is like, I mean, we're in this industry right now where it's like one misstep and we should like this cancel culture piece shouldn't permeate through everything, right? And one bad actor, like, yes, he should be punished. He should be removed from the project. He should sell the project, give the project away, whatever should happen. But all the innovations that have come, and I know Mike has strong opinions on some of the contract stuff where he can probably offer some insight better than I can. But Azuki did do some really, really good stuff, and it's interesting to me to see how different players in the space are receiving different levels of punishment, like Beanie being punished for certain things versus Zagabond being punished. The fickle market lacks consistency in their cancellation parameters. And it's just interesting to see. So, for instance, like the Mechaverse project right now, Mecha, it's like 0.21, but Azuki's back up to 15 ETH, right? So you can't make that analogy. And like the Azuki art, I think, is a lot better than the Mecha art post reveal. Like there's all this nuance that we have to go in to unpack. But
now,
it's
sorry to interrupt, man. Do you hang out in the Azuki Discord anymore? I think you're the only one that had one, right? Mike, you didn't have one, did you? No. Do you go in there and hang out? No,
I don't hang out in the Bored Ape Discord, man. I hang out in our Discord and two secret Discords, and I wish I had more time to hang out in other Discords, but I don't spend it. That's we've talked about this as the big risk factor for most projects. I don't want to derail us too much, but it's like the ability as a human to have attention and pay attention and give attention. Everyone's competing for attention. And so, if you have your home Discord and then one or two other Discords, it doesn't matter if you're in Clone X, Bored Ape, Azuki, the Moonbirds. There's not enough hours in the day to have meaningful relationships in a myriad of Discords. And so, I haven't spent much time there, but it is interesting to see how it rebounded so quickly.
Yeah, I think for me personally, like the weird thing about it is, like they did make a lot of promises, like they're going to do like a Azuki-verse and some sort of Azuki metaverse and a lot of like building of stuff. And they have pretty good developers on their team. I mean, the smart contract developers that they have on the team that took over after the initial introduction of ERC 721A are extremely good smart contract devs, and their front end devs are really good. I always thought their website was really nice. But like, if the value of the token, it's not just the artwork. That art is just kind of like part of it. The other part of it is the fact that they kind of promised a lot of stuff. And when you make, and for me, the promises were kind of backed up in that, hey, they got a lot of technical skill here. They actually might be able to pull off something cool. And so in my eyes, that it made sense to me that they were worth a lot. because it seemed like their tech matched their roadmap promise difficulty level. But as soon as you go in a situation where it's like, okay, well, actually all the founders are scammers, and yeah, two of the founders are really good programmers, but they still were cool with doing scams. And then like the only thing that they've really released since the initial drop is another drop, which isn't anything new technically speaking. They made a bunch of website updates, but that's about it. Well, then it's like, are they actually going to live up to that like Azuki verse promise, or was that always just a fake promise?
I think Azuki was soft on Azuki verse. I don't think that the roadmap really promised that. Oh, they did promise they did promise, you know, some metaverse capability, but then once again, it's you know, what does that entail and what's the timeline? I think that's part of the problem with these types of projects too, is that the roadmap component of these NFTs is really interesting. It's like and like both sides of the coin is really frustrating for me personally, because like for one thing, like artists should be able to just release art and not necessarily have to promise a roadmap or utility, right? We ran into some of that stuff with some of the artists we've helped, Mike, where like can an artist just release a piece of art as an NFT and not promise airdrops and merch and metaverses? And then you have the other end of the spectrum where the artists are now embracing it and experimenting it with people like Ferocious and the disappointing stuff with Paint. And then you have the copy pasta stuff that's happening with all these projects, and it's I think a lot of these projects are kind of getting stuck now, where they have to either keep promising and keep delivering. It's like it's very Ponzi-esque, where they're just kicking the can down the road, and like, what does that do for the health of the NFT space long term? It's a big concern of mine, and I think that your point is right, in that Azuki tried to do, and like the levels, the layers, the art, and in my opinion, like the polish of the Azuki piece, like they could have gone a long way for a long time with just that and just some decent merch and maybe a few airdrops here and there without having to go and figure this out. And I think they failed on that. And I mean, I didn't buy back in. I was texting you last night, like when it regained that 9.5 range, it felt to me like they were being. It goes like principles, gut, and profit, right? Like my gut and profit were like, this is going to shoot up. This thing could go back to 20. This thing could go back to 24, and I have no doubt that it can now. But then out of principle, I was like, man, I sold the project because I didn't believe in the founder anymore, and so I'm sitting on the sideline. But it's how do you navigate the principled mind versus the profit mind, which is what NFTs are today.
Yeah, let me jump back in. So like one of the things like Mark Cuban's always saying is like 99% of the projects are going to go to zero, just like the internet days. Everybody's saying this is just like the internet days. In fact, Mark Cuban continues to stick by the idea of this is just like the internet days. And I think we all feel that. Okay, so just to refresh my memory on the metaverse promises, I pulled up Azuki website and took a little gander under their metaverse section. And their metaverse section, even though it's titled metaverse, the only part of it that's actually metaverse-like is the third item, which is game, which is labeled exploring. And it says at the very last sentence, if we do it, we'll do it right. So it's not even a promise to do anything to do with the metaverse. And I think that's exactly the problem with Azuki, is they're very polished in their front end design. So their front end is legit, and their world building is extremely good. Like it's a really good combination of world building and front end. But I think at the end of the day, 6 months or a year from now, where all Azuki has done is additional drops that are just basically continuing to extract value out of their collectors, but not really provide anything tangible in return. I think eventually it's going to be one of those projects that has no other road to go than to wither, because what they had previously is they had kind of trust in the founders that the project was going to be something special. And in my opinion, the projects that are going to be the ones that become that 1% that Mark Cuban is talking about are projects that do one of two things. One thing is they become a successful metaverse, which is extremely hard from a development perspective. And the other thing is they become some kind of instrumental tool that enables development of the metaverse and the Nifty ecosystem or the crypto ecosystem. And Azuki doesn't have anything to do with tools or tooling other than their ERC 721A contract. And I think that did kind of bolster them quite a bit. But I think the thing about Nifty development is it's extremely trust based, because Nifty developers have like when I do a project, I'm being trusted with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. Like I could put a backdoor into the code really easily if I was a nefarious person. So people have to trust that I'm not going to do something bad like that. So trust and reputation is everything. And so already, like, I think what they've done is they've shattered that trust in the origination of the contract. And so people like the Nifty developers that are going to be successful are going to be those ones where they are extremely principled, like you said, and who have ethics above everybody else in the ecosystem. And already I'm personally, like, I loved working with ERC 721A. I thought the developers who have been maintaining it since it was released, who are not part of the core team, are extremely good developers, and I've learned a lot from them. But just that seed of shadiness is enough for me to be like, I need to figure out an alternative to ERC 721A. And that's what I'm currently trying to do, is figure out some kind of alternative so that I don't have to continue to provide them that prestige that comes along with everybody using their contract. So their one angle on that second fork of being part of the 1%, I think, is going to potentially dry up, and their metaverse intentions seem to be non-existent. So what does that leave? That leaves them to be purely judged based on their, art and their perception of the team. And there's not a lot left there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple questions, and I want to actually go deep kind of on this in a little bit more detail. But I do think that it's a good point. I think that there's some interesting thoughts around what constitutes success, and to what extent now is this being floated and propped up by whales that are heavily invested in this project. And in addition to that, if they were to clean house, would that be a good enough reset? If the devs are talented, but Zagabond leaves, during this whole week, and I brought it up in some of the hidden discords as well, is that what in another universe, that line of code that locked $30+ million in the Aku contract, when everything was going down, the markets are burning, and everyone's just looking for a lifeline of a project that's not shady influencers, that's not this. Aku would have been that golden knight to really just come in and rock it. And it's to your point, to stand out. And I disagree a little bit, and I'd love to do another video with you next week just explicitly about the metaverse. I do think the metaverse offers some compelling things and offers some interesting traps, but is it also kicking the can, where if now there's thousands of metaverses each being designed and developed by these projects, or could someone just create a really dope skin that now I could import into Fortnite or something else? Is that enough? Because that exclusivity would then pass through, because you could only, anyway, we can save that for another time. But going back to the funding that's needed to deliver something exceptional, and everyone knows we're big Micah Johnson fans. Does Aku still have what it takes with them kind of being chopped at the legs with that contract mistake? John, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I think it's going to be a much longer process than it would have been. I think they'll get there, but it's going to be very slow growth. Aku from the beginning has been a slow burner. It was a really great project to be a part of because it wasn't picked up by influencers, and so the growth that it saw was people that wanted to get involved and that were it was really a fun project to be a part of just because of what it stood for, and they clearly had long-term plans and were going to drive a lot of attention to Aku, the brand, the pending movie, the metaverse development. That's clear to me just based on everything I've seen after they had that incident. The problem is now a lot of the energy, it was deflated a bit. I mean, that's undeniable. That $34 million was what I'm not connected. In other words, I don't know what Mike and the team were planning on behind the scenes. But most of these projects, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them utilize that money to control the floor. And I know that a lot of people don't want to admit this, but a lot of the price appreciation is market manipulation. And so people believe that because the price is going up, it has value and momentum kicks in, and then you get the momentum traders. And then you have people coming in and buying it because it's worth a lot. So they associate more value with it. And I would not be surprised, and this is my speculation alone, if that 34 million, some of it was earmarked to control floor activity. And when that gets sucked out, you lose some of the momentum. But with that said, I still see the partnerships that they had planned to actually fuel both the market appreciation with the hype, have these things price moving in tandem with hype. I still see that planned hype train happening because every day that you're on Twitter, a new Aku PFP comes up, and it's like, some sort of player that's been sitting in the wings watching the project, and they have 20,000 followers, right? And so it was going to happen, and it would be like fuel on a fire right now if they hadn't had that miss on the contract, which is a shame because it's actually a good project. But I mean, that's a long way of saying,
Yeah.
I still think it's possible. It's going to be a lot slower now because, like it or not, the hype around price action matters. So
I'm really mad at myself, and I agree with you. That I got greedy, and in this bear, I was texting you guys last night around where I thought the market stood, and kind of I thought we might be at the local bottom.
mhm.
And I was watching these Akus, and I was just waiting for one to drop like 0.5 and then buy in. Now the floor is back up to 1.35.
How low did it go? I would
And
have bought it at 0.5.
it got down to like 0.8,
Oh,
0.75 for a while
Mhm.
early, over the last 24 hours. I've been watching a lot of these closely, and for me personally, like I got greedy. It's like, do I pick one up now at 1.35? Like for me, it seems, 15 hours ago, 0.8 was kind of 0.79, 0.78. Yeah, so it was sitting there. I think it dipped to like 0.69, and I told myself if it dropped to the 0.5s, I was gonna start buying, and luckily it didn't. But Pranksy did just buy a bunch of them like 2 hours ago, which is really interesting.
I'm bullish on Aku, and here's why. Micah and team figured out a formula that allowed them to generate $34 million in sales.
Mhm.
It was like exactly like you were saying, John. Let's work slow, let's work deliberate, let's build little pieces one at a time, and then let's get to this big drop where we make a large amount of capital, and then let's put that to work doing something cool. So
Mhm.
they figured out a formula that works for their team and their people and their concept. So nothing about the $34 million getting locked changes the fact that that formula, I think, can continue to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's obviously incredibly painful for them, and they'll probably have to make some sacrifices. Like, people might have been planning on paying off their houses or something when they got that payoff, and now they're going to have to, continue to work their day jobs and stuff. But I think the formula is valid. Like that approach of slow and deliberate building, like respect for the community, not over diluting, not
Mm-hmm.
just pumping out, like extracting value as fast as possible. I think it can work, and the ball is entirely in their court. Like everybody, they're going to be like a underdog now. Like everybody is going to want to support what they do next, and so they could probably like build for another 2 or 3 months and then come out with some big gangbuster project and just take out all the value and then kind of suck the people dry, or they can restart that process of, hey, let's work on the next series of 10 Aku chapters or something, and let's just do it all over again. And I think if they kind of return in a way that feels like they're still in it, they're back re-engaged in it for the long term, I think that project can I think that project has as much or more potential long term as any project. And it could be at the end of the day, like 10 years from now, it could be that the Akatars are the most valuable of the whole thing, because the Akatars might be that spark that caused the team to kind of redouble their efforts. So I would say I'm bullish personally on like just the whole Aku thing, but it does depend a lot on their actions over the next couple months, I would say.
Yeah, so
I'm a bozo. I just bought 3.
3 Akatars?
I wanted it at 0.8. I talked myself into it.
Wait, did you do it on stream or you did it earlier today?
No, he just did it live.
I just did it on Gem.
You sold them, Mike. So Mal, the only thing I would say, I don't want to fud your bags. Obviously, I'm still holding bags. But
Jesus, I just bought 3.
I know, but you got to look both sides here. That $34 million, they have I mean, again, I'm not directly connected. I get to sit in some decisions of the content and the creation, but the finances of the team, I don't see any of that. So this is just me speculating. But they have a lot of insane talent that I can assure you is not cheap on their team. They have, like, I'm talking Web 2, like Star Wars content creators on their team. This was just a recent tweet that went out. Like every day there's a new unbelievable person they're announcing that's on their team developing content and I can tell you that $34 million wasn't going to pay off anybody's houses. That $34 million, they have bills to pay, right? That was going to pay things that they were doing in the Aku brand building environment. And so now that they don't have that money, you know what that means? That means either they go super slow, people continue to work for like future compensation, or you lose some of that talent, or you bring on VC capital. And when you bring on VC capital, Mike, this is your biggest grievance. When you bring these guys in here, value doesn't go back to the community. Yeah, it goes to the VCs. And the great thing about Aku is it was 100% built basically without VC involvement. I mean, the chapter launches, everything they've done, Miami and Art Basel, the parties they were throwing, the press stuff, everything they did was 100% done on budget, and the community stood to basically reap the benefits of that. And I can't say here confidently, even though my bags are very heavy in Aku, and I'm not selling. I love the project. I'm going to ride this one. But again, I'm fully aware that the value that might have been driven to Aku holders, if they got to bring VCs on, it's not going to you guys, or at least not all of it. So it's something to consider before you leap in. Unlike Mal, who already leaped in. So
I had one. I've been eyeing it. And I actually saw that Darf, who's one of the Mad Pups, bought it a few minutes ago. And I mean, like, let's call it what it is. Pranksy. I'm just going through the feed just so people see, kind of why why I did the crazy thing that I did, right? I'm not gambling because I had a Miller Lite. But I've been watching this project nonstop. But basically, I was looking at it, and I didn't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. And I do have a little bit of Azuki money because I papered that before it went back up. But if you look at kind of the last 24 hours, right, I was watching here and I was greedy. And you either believe long term in a project or you don't. And like for me, like I'm looking at deploying capital into projects that I think do have longer upside. Once again, not financial advice. Everyone's strategy should be different. So then today was a busy day for me personally, and you start seeing these fluctuations. About 12 hours ago, I got busy, stopped looking, and so I saw the last movement was someone taking an offer for 0.73. So for all intents and purposes, I thought the market was going to keep going down. ETH is cheap right now. And then we're on stream, we're talking about Aku, and then I just look at this wall that just went through 2 hours ago. Let me make this smaller. You look at the wall that got hit 2 hours ago, and you just see, okay, Pranksy went ham and just started buying them left and right. And then you start looking for wallets that you either peep or wallets that you follow. And going back to your point about, I really respect Darf. He's one of the mad pups. Darf coming in at 1.5 on a project 21 plus Pranksy, it gave me the FUD. And so, yeah, buying 3, a little bit more expensive than I would have liked.
They gave you the FOMO?
Yeah. Sorry, it gave me the FOMO. And so, yeah, we'll see. I mean, and once again, it's a good project. I really like Micah. I wanted to have more than one in the project, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a bad pickup, Mal. It depends on what the overall market does, but you've proven to be one of the best momentum traders that I've seen. Not that you're planning on a quick trade, but you're able to read momentum and get in right before it really moves one way or the other, which is pretty impressive. And I think that if you're going to bet on a project while the market is down, it's certainly a good one to do that on.
Yeah, this project and crypto or cyber brokers are the 2 projects that I'm watching closely. I'm still watching Max Payne closely since I don't have one.
You don't have a
I was
Max
waiting
Payne?
for that to drop. No, I was waiting for it to drop to 0.6.
Okay.
Yeah, like I was gonna pick one up, but like yeah. So my big picks are like Max Payne. I'm still watching the Artifact Monolith that I papered. I thought that was gonna drop into the 4s. I think the other side land is still decent at it's under 3, and then hash masks at 0.33. I just have a bunch of tabs open and I just hit refresh. I know there's a better way to do it. And then I think that the cyber brokers, like those are my 5 projects that I'm watching closely. And so, yeah, Aku was on that list. I shouldn't have been greedy. I should have just gone in. But, once again, like even if it loses some value, I'd lose, maybe an ETH on it if I did have to liquidate. I don't think the floor drops too much below 1 ETH. For any reasonable amount of time. And if it does, Mike and I were talking about this is like, if Coinbase goes bankrupt and I have ETH in Coinbase or ETH in a wallet or ETH anywhere else, if Coinbase went bankrupt, like crypto is set back so far that it doesn't really matter that my crypto is in there or not. And so like if something so catastrophic happened that Aku were to go below 0.5 for me personally, not advice for anybody. Something so catastrophic had happened that my embracing this space is effed anyway. And so that's kind of my mentality with some of these plays. It's make pseudo smart plays. And my strategy's changed where I used to say if I didn't min it, I'm not buying it. Where now it's wait and try and time it, find the value, and see where we think the healthy floor could be, where there is potential upside.
So Mal, you kind of already put it out there for Aku. You've been watching it along with cyber brokers, Max Payne. Is there any other we talked about this a couple of weeks back when we were on stream about that one PFP that you'd buy if you had the chance again and the floor, dropped out. You got Aku. Is there anything, Mike, anything from you that you're eyeballing to pick up now that the market's kind of dropped?
Man, I mean, my answer to this would have always been Azuki prior to this last week. I think for me, I'm like, when stuff gets in a lot of turmoil, then I kind of go back to basics. Like, as a developer and as a smart contract person, like I need the underlying tokens in order to do my work. So in my eyes, like investing in Ethereum itself and Poly, like I said, in Matic itself, like it becomes like almost like a business expense because I need Poly and Matic. I need Matic and Ethereum to continue to deploy contracts and to pay gas for all the transactions I do, like where I'm airdropping tokens and all that stuff. So I kind of focus back on those things versus Nifties to me are kind of more like a little bit more of a luxury or like a fun item versus like a doing my job sort of item.
Okay.
So for me, it's more about like, hey, now's a really good time to acquire the underlying tokens because they're so depressed. Like I guess I wasn't too surprised that ETH did break 2,000, although I don't think it went as low as it did in July of 2021. I think we stayed above that July low, although we got pretty close to it. But I think, at times like this are great opportunities to get into the tokens that you're going to use to pay like all of your transaction fees and everything else. The Nifties are also, you can find some good deals, but
your strategy is also different. You're more of a buy and holder than I am.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So like that's the
I don't do
risk
any
there,
trading
like,
in Nifties really. I just buy Nifties that I like and stick with them.
Yeah, and I'm much more I'm much more risky, where I'll try and arbitrage some of the. I mean, yeah. So like if the NFT's flat but ETH goes up and I break even on it, I've still made quite a bit. Well, I mean, technically no, it's just a store of value, but there's definitely some gambling ish stuff that is going on, but. Yeah, I mean, like that's the other thing is like, I asked Mike because Mike has a beat bowl. Is like, is anyone willing to paper hand and into the ether? Like, because beat bowl's kind of discounted right now, so there's not really PFPs. Like, I was watching Doodles. If Doodles dropped below 10, I was gonna probably talk to y'all about do we DAO it. I'm becoming much more interested in from participating in the Red Bean DAO, obviously because the Red Bean DAO is friends. Y'all are business partners and friends of 20 plus years, doing more stuff where we start to DAO projects that we believe in long term. The final thing that I think has a lot of potential upside, and in hindsight, I wish I thought about this because I would have probably won Akutar instead of 3, is Sandbox is cheap right now. I think that buying some Sandbox.
And why do you, but wait, John, why do you think that's valuable?
I think that Sandbox. So there's going to be a few. I think like so if going back to your point about the metaverse, let's close this off because we were going to tease it, and we're going to talk about it in more detail. If every project now promises a metaverse, then there's going to be too many metaverses. There's already too many. Going back to my attention, fickle people doing fickle things, and the competition for attention, pooling of resources, efficiency of economies, and everything that comes into what you think of has to consist in a metaverse. I think there will be multiple metaverses. I do think that Yuga Labs has a good shot purely on the capital that they have to deploy and compete. But I think that if every project is now deploying a metaverse, most of them are going to fail.
Sure.
I think a T-Pose and we've talked about this a lot before, but if there was a set of standards that all the metaverses apply, and a function that you could create some API calls that if Azuki had a 3D T-pose model that could work in any metaverse, that would be the way to go versus trying to build out their own metaverse. That being said, Sandbox and Decentraland have a head start. The fact that they've lost 66% of their value over the last 2 months, still having all of that technical debt that's been invested, right? They have the APIs, they have the games. So many people have already built out expertise in that, where a discounted 66, I'm making myself bullish to want to go buy that like right now, where I think that there is a lot of opportunity to say, I believe that the metaverse is real. I believe that the metaverse will be here for a long time. That type of opportunity seems good. But I'd also want to DAO, especially land with the NFT culture team, because if we could buy parcels that are next to each other, it gives us a much stronger position to be a bigger player in a future metaverse. So you were right. I agree with 90% of what you said.
Yeah.
Just the nuance of everyone building out a metaverse doesn't work, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree with that too. And yeah, I mean, there's always different levels of developers, and you know, not every website is good, so not every metaverse is going to be good, and not every video game is good, so not every metaverse is going to be good. But yeah, let's save that for a conversation. We'll have a metaverse specific conversation next week because I'm really into it right now, so I definitely want to talk about it more. But yeah, I just was excited that you proved one of my earlier points to some degree.
No, and I was trying to save it without, because I do think that nuance is important. But I do think that it's definitely like a wild period for all of this type of stuff, and I think that's going to be fun. I've said this a lot before. It's like, the next 6-figure job is going to be metaverse architect.
Oh, like if you can actually
hands down.
build the like people's houses and stuff in metaverse.
Yeah, like if you're a phenomenal builder, like in Minecraft or whatever the API or Unreal Engine 5, like think about the amount of capital that's being deployed in NFTs today, and if what the metaverse promises can be delivered on, where people want. And what's cool about Sandbox is like there's gamification, there's games, there's things you can do. So like if adults are going to be spending time in the metaverse the way kids spend time playing games in Roblox, then if I have capital and I want to make my plot better than other people, why wouldn't I pay someone who's really, really good at that to create a personalized experience for me?
Absolutely.
And then I can social flex with my Beeples, my X copies, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are really good at designing these experiences and these environments are going to be uniquely positioned to make a bunch of money.
It's kind of happening.
And these
it's kind of happening. It's kind of happening right now with clones, right? You have these space pods that came out, and then people are decking out their space pods with whatever NFT art that they value. I've seen a lot of the Aku stuff popping up recently, and then you see when it pops up in the Discord, people are like, "Oh, that's really cool. Can you do that for me?" But sure, I can. I can do it for you for a price, right? So
yeah. But I mean, like, call it metaverse architect and make it a job. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of.
Just to tie it into CK Garage was talking about ENS 4 digits in the chat. I wonder if anybody's gotten metaversearchitect.eth yet.
Why didn't you go pick it up?
Pick it up before I mentioned. Hey, seems like a pretty good ENS name. Malaguy's checking on it.
yeah, he is.
It's going to be a race.
All right, Mike, is there any price level that
metaversearchitect.com is already taken?
Oh yeah, okay.
What about .eth?
You got to get the .eth, bro. You gotta snipe them.
It's taken. If someone's smart enough to know what metaverse architect is, and they bought .com and XYZ, they bought the ENS.
Mike, is there a price that the punk floor would need to drop to make you a punk owner?
Are you saying that if it dropped to a certain level, would I buy
Yeah,
one?
like what price are you a buyer for punks?
There's a hypothetical price that I would buy one. Yes.
What
I
is
mean,
it? I'm curious because I saw
well,
one sell, I think, for like 56 ETH or something like that, which I thought was insane.
let me kind of pivot your question a tiny bit. I feel like having a high-end PFP has a lot of value now, especially now, and
Mm-hmm.
probably in the future, especially in the metaverse world, but maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little bit less in the metaverse world. So from that perspective, I feel like I do need to own a high-end PFP just to kind of be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have my ape. So like if there was a world where I could, there probably is a world where if the delta between the ape and the punk got big enough that I would jump.
Mm-hmm.
I might consider switching,
Okay, so
but I don't think it's there yet. It's probably what, 50 ETH.
yeah, I mean, you mean that the ape would have to be that much higher for you to actually sell it and rotate it into a punk?
Yeah,
So you wouldn't hold them both at the same time?
I don't see the value there because you can only display one PFP at a time, and they're not really going to look very good in the metaverse.
Okay.
But when people are coming to the people that you paid $100,000 to build out your meta house and your metaverse, and you're going to have your punk above your fireplace and your ape above your bed, you know, there that you can flex that way in the metaverse, right? I think like there, and that's the other thing is like if NFTs, if all NFTs are 5 years from now as PFPs, we're not going to make
That's
it.
true. Yeah.
That's for sure. It's too bad Rob wasn't on. He just had his birthday, and his wife painted him his punk. It's over. It was freaking awesome. It was over his fireplace. It's his pride and joy, which is pretty amazing.
I feel like we're in this kind of like in betweener time where like metaverse isn't real and a few people yet, and a few people have like released the files. Like Bonsai were one of the first projects where they kind of released the 3D modeling files with the Nifty, and people are promising like metaverse integrations for their PFPs. And like Arcade Land has already modeled a whole bunch of projects. Like you can go on their alpha and you can see what they look like to actually use an Arcade Land alpha. So I think we're getting close to that time where I think it's going to pivot into like, does this actually work and look cool in Metaverse X? And that's going to be what's driving value. Nice. Just got the old wife bird.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. But I think for now, I mean, right now, it's possible that the PFPs that are cool today are going to be completely useless in a year. Like let's say that the metaverse that wins is not Other Side. Let's say it's Sandbox, or which is kind of voxel based, or let's say it's some other thing.
Or it's Meta.
Maybe it's Meta. I saw a demo video with Zuck and their goggles, and it looks really sick. Although it looks really rough, it looks years away from being ready.
Yeah.
But let's say hopefully it's not. But let's say it's Meta. Like, I think there's going to be a completely different PFP that's going to win that world, and everything we are dealing with now could be valuable only for historical reasons. And I think if that's the case, stuff is really going to tank.
Is there, Mal? Let's close on this. Is there I guess, what do you guys put in your probability to that people are actually, I guess, their expectations are met with whatever metaverse actually is finally the end metaverse? Like, is there a world where expectations are actually met, in your opinions, or is every metaverse going to fall short and we're going to see just carnage? Mal?
I think it's going to be a hub spoke type of experience. Like I see a future probably sooner than later. As soon as Board Ape Yacht Club is being really, Yuga Labs is being really patient about building out the 3D models to make sure that they look good. But like imagine this though. Like I can now connect my ape to essentially Epic Games, right? And then Epic Games through Unreal Engine can now import that. So now when I'm playing Fortnite, I have my ape.
Bull.
That
You can do that right now?
is no, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable, right? And but the thing is, so people say, okay, like Fortnite makes all their money off skins, but then there's also going to be like some sort of thing where like if there's going to be fewer people that have access to all this, right? These limited pieces, and then the next NFTs that come out, there's going to be social flex where Fortnite probably is going to say, hey, Fortnite, or hey, Yuga Labs, your IP is so valuable that we want to have your apes in our game. And so they're going to give it away, right? Now, Akutar probably the same. NFTs keep going, accessibility, everything else. Eventually, there's going to be NFTs where they're not going to charge the end user, but the expectation's been set by the market that these premier NFTs are now accessible in game for games like Fortnite, whatever you want. Now, Fortnite can say, hey, your community's demanding this. We're not going to charge the user. We're going to charge the creators of the project. Now, the creators of the project are going to have to set aside a certain percentage of the funds to have the portability into that metaverse. And now this becomes a monetization piece for all of these restrictive IP that's not passed on to the user, but it's passed on to the creators of the project as a liaison for that. So if you're Killer Koala 17 project and you've got this thriving economy that wants to put these killer koalas in the metaverse or Fortnite or anything else, now you as the project owner are going to pay that fee so that all of the koalas become accessible. That's my hypothesis.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's what we saw with like rarity tools and those tools. So I don't see why it would be any different with metaverses. Just trying to think, how does that affect value? It kind of sucks because it gives a window for false value creation by the pump and dump projects.
Not really. I mean, it could hypothetically. I mean, there's still like this was a brainstorming brain dump right now. Like, there's definitely there will be those projects that are that want to push Epic Games to allow them to be in the games. And then there's going to be that level of established projects that it becomes commonplace. And then eventually Epic Games is going to be selling their own NFTs, right? Where if you buy the Army Man skin, it's going to be yours to own and sell and do whatever you want. And then G.I. Joe's going to come out with Duke, and it's going to be an NFT. And if you want to be Duke in Fortnite, you own it, you can sell it. They're going to take 30% of the fees. So like it's like the transfer of ownership is going to be two things, in my opinion. One is like established IP is going to let you own it, right? You can make money off of it, but you don't actually own it. You can't do your own things with it. And then there's going to be an entire new set of IP. But like the great filter of that new IP is going to be really, really hard to break through. There's going to be one out of every 10,000 koala projects, not 10,000 koala NFTs, but 10,000 projects. So one out of 10 million of those is going to actually break through.
Mike, you said you saw the demo on Meta and it looked rough still.
Well, it was rough. Like you could see a lot of glitches and stuff.
How long do you think they've been working on that?
Probably a long time. I mean, they had it. I guess what they were bragging about, it was full color. So if you have used the what's their freestanding one?
The Oculus. No, it's the Oculus, right?
But it's like the Rift or something, Rift 2. Oh,
Okay.
no, not Rift. It's their cheaper one, where you just use your phone connected to it. I forget what it's called. But whatever the case is, that one has the pass-through vision where when you put the cameras, it completely blocks your face, but it has cameras that can see in front of the device. So it projects its image onto that actual field of view. It only works in black and white on the Quest and the Quest.
Quest, that's what it was.
So on the Quest, it's black and white, and the Quest is the best VR device I've used personally. Like I've used the higher end ones that connect, but the fact that you're completely untethered with the Quest, I think, is what really makes it a compelling experience. So it was kind of like Quest, but it was like the video feed was like a high resolution color video feed that they're overlaying graphics onto. And so it basically it is achieving the same thing as like AR glasses would, except it's full face coverage. So I assume that they do the full face coverage because they can get a better image projected into your field of view than just the AR clear glasses could do. But I think that the way that it merges like physical reality with virtual reality, I think is really going to be a compelling thing, because you could do the thing like on Kingsman where you're sitting at a table and you have the other people in the video conference physically present at the table, stuff like that, except with even better fidelity than you saw in that movie where they were kind of like ghostly, like it could do like actual perfect representations of people. So I think that's probably the question is like, is that a fundamental component of metaverse or not? I think metaverse, yeah.
Well, we have to end.
Yeah, we should end on
But
that.
very shortly, Microsoft and others, like, and how people are using AI to translate lips, and like the deep fakes that can be done like automatically, and how NVIDIA can like actually make your face do things like to fill the gaps if you're on lower quality connections. Like eventually, like from a B2B standpoint, like Meta really wants to solve that. So like if they could create the experience where it feels like you're in a boardroom where no matter where you are in the world, you still look like you're wearing your suit and all those things, it doesn't matter. I do think that that's definitely one of the main use cases for that. Like people aren't creating metaverses for us; they're creating metaverses to extract ETH from us, and we need to keep that in mind 100% of the time.
That's true.
Good stream, fellas. I think metaverse is at least 5 to 10 years out from actually being usable. So we got a long way to go. We're going to see a lot of projects go up and down in between.
We're definitely
everything's going to rebrand as a metaverse, and all games are now going to be metaverse experiences.
Yeah.
Very true. All right, guys.
All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging with us. We're out.
Take it easy, everybody.